Hello, everyone, and welcome into the Lone Star Varsity Postgame Show. Week 9 is in the books. I'm Mike Graham.
And I'm Brian Navarrete, and we're with the Lone Star Varsity High School sports staff.
The show is brought to you by the University Medical Center and powered by AJ Media. And Brian, I think a lot of people were really excited about the Coronado-Cooper game. But going into this, I think that we thought that maybe a game that would be equally great or maybe even better was the Seminole-Sweetwater, and boy, did it turn out to be that way. A 28-27 win for Seminole over the defending state runner-up who had beaten them twice in a 5-week span last year. Seminole gets some revenge, forced overtime, and scored an opening touchdown in overtime. Sweetwater came back and scored a touchdown, but then missed their PAT, and that's how the game ended.
This game could have tied up again. It could have gone even longer, but these are the kind of games you like to see. On either ends, if you're Seminole or Sweetwater, because this just means you're kind of ready for the playoffs at this point, taking it into overtime and, staying tough the whole way through. Before we move forward, I do want to point out, I had the Indians winning in this.
Yeah, you did. You gained ground on all of us. You gained ground on me on this show. Actually, I think you probably believe on this show, but you gained ground on all of us in the in our little boxes where we predict high school, college, and the NFL, and those are hard to come by. Those unanimous sweeps, and you got that. And I mean, let's just break down how this happened. It was a really tight game all the way through. Sweetwater had a 21-13 lead going into the final 5 minutes of the game, and then Seminole scores a touchdown, but they have to get the 2-point conversion. Guess who comes to the rescue? Texas commitment, Seminole tight end, a future offensive tackle for Texas, I think is what they're projecting him as.
Yeah.
Scores the 2-point conversion to force overtime.
It was so interesting to see that they went back to, they threw the ball in that situation because, kind of looking at them in the past, or at least this season, they've opted for the run game first. And that's kind of been what they've held tried and true. And then they turn around and they got trusty Reese Moore in the end zone, and they were able to take it to overtime where they really came up big. A lot of the names that we've seen throughout the season, they seem to all have shown up tonight. Mm-hmm. Alex Menchaca, Cade Barnard, Reese Moore. These are all kids that on any night, could be the headliner for their games. But in this one, all of them just showed up.
Yeah, and you'd expect that to get past a team like Sweetwater. I mean, this is your defending Region 1 champion of Class 4A Division 2, went to the state championship game, held its own against a West Shore and Stark team that people thought was just going to run away from wire to wire last season, and Sweetwater did a good job contesting with them, brought back a lot of the pieces from that team is the big point I'm trying to make.
Yeah.
And Seminole gets a win, and not only do they win that, but they win the District 2 4A Division 2 championship, at least a share, heading into an extremely winnable game against Fort Stockton.
Yeah, I think the Indians are hot right now, and that's why I kind of picked them to win this one. I think since that Week 1 loss in Lubbock High, they're just a different team. And coming into this one, like we had mentioned, they want to take revenge on Sweetwater for 2 losses last year.
Yeah, now the interesting thing about this game is we're getting very late into the regular season now. And last year they met 5 weeks apart. This week it could be 4 or 5. And I think that if they finish 1 and 2 in this district, they would actually meet in the regional semifinal round instead of the regional championship round.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to follow both teams heading into the playoffs, as well as some other teams out of that district, because they all ended up meeting up again in the postseason. So we'll just keep an eye on them and see how everything goes.
Well, another team going for revenge tonight was Coronado after last season's loss to Lubbock Cooper, which cost them an outright district championship and allowed Abilene Cooper to claim at least a minority share of the district championship. So Coronado traveled down to Lubbock Cooper tonight. And I think this is a game that the Pirates would definitely want back. 6 turnovers committed in this game. And Coronado went to the locker room with a 35-7 lead, kind of just pushed the game along in the third quarter, pulled some players and allowed Lubbock Cooper to get a little bit closer. But it wasn't a very close game, and I don't think it was that well played by the Pirates.
I like how you let it off in your story and your gamer, and that this is one that they might have wanted back, just because they didn't come out with their full arsenal. I think you mentioned it in your story, but they weren't 100%.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, it's like Keith Campbell was there, but I don't think they targeted him Elijah Boyd wasn't available for this game. Jake Kirkpatrick still wasn't available for this game. And when you're in a situation like that where your key players aren't there and you're probably overmatched, especially offense to defense without Kirkpatrick, you have to be very careful with the way you play. And it just the turnovers really snowballed, and one just kind of led to another. I don't think that if they hadn't committed a couple so early that they would have had so many. But they had problems with their center quarterback exchanges. They had problems handing the ball off. They fumbled 6 times and lost 3 of them, in addition to 3 interceptions. It was just a tough night.
Yeah, that's hard to fight back from.
Yeah.
But not to take anything away from Coronado. Obviously, they've proven that they're one of our best teams.
Absolutely.
If not the best in our coverage area right now.
What you notice about Coronado is that they're just excited to play every single game on their schedule, and that's big. And they're going to have to keep that this week. They've got Lubbock High. Lubbock High is now desperate for a win to remain in the playoff picture. And while you're preparing for Lubbock High, you know that this thing is probably coming down to a Coronado-Abilene Cooper championship game where Abilene Cooper can once again claim at least a share of the district title, or Coronado's finally going to win one outright with Coach Parr.
Yeah, I think you just focus on the next game, which would be Lubbock High, like any coaching staff does, and then you get ready for that one. But that last game is going to be a tough one for Coronado. I like the way that it turned out that way. That in the final week, you're playing for something.
Yeah.
It's just that much more special. And the Mustangs came up with a big win tonight.
Yeah, and Cooper, kind of a challenging schedule ahead of them. I think Lakeview is one of their final opponents. That's good. I think they'll get into the playoffs. But I know that they wanted a way better performance against Coronado.
Yeah, and all you can do in this one is kind of look at what you did wrong and then fix them and just keep moving forward. Still keep the playoff berth alive,
Well, we thought your game was going to be a little better than it turned out as well. You had Hale Center at New Deal. New Deal keeps on rolling, remains unbeaten with a 41-10 win, and the Owls are now in serious trouble if they're going to get out of 2A. District 2, 2A Division 1, it's going to take some magic now.
Yeah, they're really going to have to turn it on really soon. But, talking with anybody and, talking with Matt Hale and everything, they're very complimentary of how House Center plays, even though they weren't able to do some big things tonight. Some of the things that they do bring to the table and everything is impressive. But in this one, New Deal just ran away with it. New Deal is a good team. I'm excited that I've been able to see New Deal and Abernathy at this point because I know their strengths and I know when they meet up, it's probably going to come down to 1 point again.
Absolutely. He's referencing last year's game, which was a 1-point win for Abernathy. They win the district championship, go on to win Region 1 and make a semifinal appearance. But New Deal looks like that kind of team too.
Yeah. I was really impressed with Nehemiah Martinez. I believe it was 129 yards. He went over 100 yards on only 5 carries. So that means every time he touched it, he was almost in the end zone. He ended up with 3 touchdowns on the night. So when you kind of put that into perspective, he's a real big threat.
Yeah.
And then with Jet Whitfield, he's also a very good offensive threat. They've taken him off the defensive side of the ball, and now he's purely quarterback. But those 2 players, just them 2 in themselves, are huge. And they actually sat out the second half. They rotated in some second stringers, and they were still able to be competitive. Well, what I took away from this game is that Abernathy game is going to be one to get out to.
Absolutely, absolutely. But what was the driving factor of this game? What separated New Deal from Hale Center by a 31-point margin?
I think the bodies up front, the offensive line, defensive line. Because if you look at some of the film or break it down a little bit, you can see just giant holes where they're able to kind of get some things done. Defense was huge. They were able to take away any run game that Hale Center was trying to establish. And Hale Center actually lost their starting running back early on, Jesse Hinojosa. On the 3rd play, I believe, of the game, he ended up getting hurt. So they had to find somebody else to bring in. And that hurts you, especially at that level when you lose one of your better athletes or one of your starting athletes. But I think the determining factor for who was going to win this one was that offensive and defensive line. I think they just got the bigger push at the end of the day and were able to come away with it. That and New Deal's defense was impressive.
Yeah, that Abernathy game next week is going to be so much fun. If you're not committed to any particular high school football program, definitely would check that out. And we'll probably be beating a dead horse about that one this upcoming week.
Definitely. And actually, at the end of the game, we were able to get a talk with Matt Hale.
Just pleased by the way that we started out. Started fast tonight, and got a few scores there early, and so that just puts them behind the 8 ball, and it allows our defense to loosen up a little bit. And just proud of the way the kids came out and started fast tonight.
And with that said, I think we just want to go over some of the scores. We'll just read them off and comment if anything stands out. We'll wrap this up since it's after midnight.
Yeah. First one, big one, Idalou, 39-0 over Roosevelt. Yeah. Finally got a district win. Moving forward, that can create some momentum. Monterey, 62-21 over San Angelo Lakeview. Borden County, 58-0.
Surprise.
Hamlin defeated Tahoka, 32-27. And I'm just going to kind of move forward here a little bit. And one of them that really surprised me, Hawley 26, Post 0.
Yeah, they're really hurting now without Michael Ferguson, who was a great player. He's got a complex knee injury, and they're not expecting him back. Leader of their defense at linebacker, and probably was on pace for more than a 2,000-yard rushing season. And they're back to the drawing board. It doesn't mean their season's over, but it does mean that they've hit a roadblock.
Yeah. This one really stood out to me because I'm used to seeing Post on the other end of that score.
Absolutely.
Shutting out some teams, but I still think that they're going to be competitive moving forward, and they're going to be able to find some kids to step up. Hawley was a good team coming in.
I thought that Abernathy's 55-21 win against Floydada was a good one because Floydada was not one of those teams that we were talking about in 2A Division I, and they really stepped up in the first couple of weeks, and they've got themselves in prime playoff position. And I know that they were motivated to go take on Abernathy, and Abernathy just got by them.
Yeah, if you look at the game at halftime, it's 28-21. Floydada is right there. They could very well have, tied it up in the third quarter and, held them. But Abernathy was able to come away with the win with a couple of late touchdowns, extended the lead. The biggest takeaway is just that Floydada is being competitive in this district, and they're really turning it up right now.
And with all that said, I just want to remind everyone that our recap articles are now available on LoneStarVarsity.com. We're going to get some sleep. We're going to come back with some thoughts and expand Saturday morning. There will be a podcast coming out, at least at some point this weekend. It's kind of getting hectic around here with our media guys loading up the truck and headed off to Norman. So we want to thank Brad Tollefson, who's producing this video over here. He's got an early morning as he goes to Norman. Obviously want to thank the University Medical Center for everything that they provide us with. We hope you enjoyed this show, and we'll see you next week. Thank you very much for watching in, and have a great weekend.